everybody. Welcome to the Resistance broadcast. John here, talking to you on a Monday, and it is November 7th. We are here to talk to you about the latest in Star Wars news, but we also have Will of the Force at the end of the show, so stick around. It's a full one, and talking Star Wars with me, as always, is James and Lacey. I did not get the memo. I am not wearing a Make Solo 2 Happen apparel, but James and Lacey are.
It's because James and I created it.
Mm-hmm. We're keeping, and we're just going to start lies now to kick off the show on a Monday, which is good. But the deal is we're keeping that alive. Did we have a Make Solo 2 Happen day this year? We did not. But I still am holding out hope that we will see Alden Ehrenreich once again as Han Solo. But that aside, we're not going to be talking about that today, guys. We are talking about No Shave November. That's right. No Shave November. I just haven't shaved yet, so I may just keep it going. James has a beard, so I don't know.
I do not have a beard.
You do not. No, you do not. But
you know what I do have? This is my Christmas movie mug.
It started, Lacey.
This is my Christmas movie mug.
That's what it says?
This is my Christmas movie mug.
It actually says "this is" on it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. We got a little Resistance brew in there?
Mm-mm. Just regular coffee.
Okay. Well, if people do want some Resistance brew, you can go to weirdbrothers.com.
I ran out. Sorry.
I'm doing the plug. Weirdbrothers.com. Look up the Resistance brew. They'll mail it right to you. And what's good about it is obviously you're helping us out at the podcast. You're helping out a small business down in Virginia. They're the best down there at Weird Brothers. And I believe they also send proceeds for veterans. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. Very cool. So yeah, check it out. Weirdbrothers.com. Get some coffee, the Resistance brew. And it's actually pretty damn good. So I actually am out. I'm fresh out. So I need to restock myself. Just in time for the holiday season. It's a nice stocking stuffer too. That was harder to say stocking stuffer than I thought it would be. Just a reminder, guys, Wednesday we are going live at 9 p.m. to talk about episode 10 of Andor. We are in the home stretch here, and this is the last episode of the final arc before the 2-episode finale, so to speak. So we're excited to talk about the inevitable jailbreak and all that comes with it. But we are going to be talking about other Star Wars projects, stuff that's coming up, stuff that has happened, stuff that has been given accolades, a lot of positive stuff to talk about too. So I'm excited on a Monday to make your Monday a little brighter. Sometimes Mondays can be a little bleak. Here's some cool stories to talk about. So you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. James,
Resistance, report us.
It's the Resistance.
Well, John, as you said it, we're going to be talking about accolades and acolytes because we're kicking this first story off with how the Acolyte has started shooting in Shinfield Studios. So we know this is shooting, and if you want to head over to Star Wars Newsnet, you can see where we have a couple photos. It's not our story, but we've provided the photos and links to where you can find more information on how they've begun. But all we really want to talk about here, I think, on the show, unless you guys want to go into more details, is now it's real. It's tangible. You can see it, and we know that the process has started. John, you want to start? What are your thoughts on the Acolyte having now begun the filming process? Principal photography.
I mean, this is cool for a few reasons. One, because, these pictures, which I believe are from Bespin Bulletin, it must have a good drone, and it just flies it over. That's what's got to make
Imperial probe droid.
Right. Imperial probe drone.
Yeah.
But that's what has to make this stuff harder for them to conceal these types of things. Now, this isn't giving away plots, I guess, or anything, but it looks like it looks similar to Ferrix in Andor a bit. But it also reminds me of the Main Street at Disney World, which is a replica of Main Street at Disneyland, except it is like plywood with front facings. So when we see this marketplace or whatever this is in Acolyte, we'll remember that on the back of that, it's some good old-fashioned plywood or whatever. But this does look like pretty cool. I do love the aspects of the live sets, and if you look at like that truck that's parked out front, you can get an idea of the scope of how big this street is or what have you. It gives nothing away about what the show's about. We did hear from Leslie Headland that it is going to be a bit of a Indiana Jones type of thing where she used a Star Wars atlas for different locations, and there's going to be people on a hunt for objects and this sort of thing. So this could be very well just a speck of dust on on a wide sweeping scale of locations that we're going to get. So as we saw, remember when we were talking about Andor, and every other week there were photos of locations and stuff, and we were like, oh, there's another leak, Andor location, and that's what we have here. But in the long run of it, it's just cool to see what they do with these UK filming operations, which aren't as centrally focused to Manhattan Beach and the volume. I'm sure this show, just like Andor did, will use the volume in some aspects. I'm curious what the ratio is, but it's really cool to see Star Wars filming in the UK, because that is where it all began, and something about it feels nostalgic. But I also like the fact that I really don't know anything about this series.
Lucy, do you have any thoughts on the photos that we're looking at and the filming process beginning?
Well, it's exciting to see something in production. I can tell you that much. Anytime you see something Star Wars in production, there's a little kind of high five, fist pump up in the air.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's happening.
Hooray! Things are being done. And as we know from what we've heard so far with the Acolyte, just the actors alone that are involved in this project is they're just killer. I'm so excited about who's involved with this show.
I almost forgot about that. The Squid Game guy, right?
Yes, I'm so excited. And I just think seeing real sets again goes back to kind of how I felt about Andor the whole time, where it makes all the difference. I feel like it the volume is great. It's done amazing things for The Mandalorian and other shows. There's just something, I don't know, very interesting when people can interact with sets like this. So yeah, I'm just really pumped to see that it's in production, and I'm glad it's in production in the UK. While clearly they have issues with drone footage, I feel like you're gonna have a couple less leaks than maybe you would have in California.
Do you guys, are just out of curiosity, are you more excited for Skeleton Crew or Acolyte?
Man,
that's a tough question, because I love the actors that are involved with Acolyte, but the kind of story of Skeleton Crew is interesting to me.
Yeah, I feel like the reason I ask is because they both seem to be on the same page as like what little we know about them, but we, have kind of gotten maybe a little bit of artwork or some premise,
Right.
I'm going Acolyte because of timeline.
Yeah.
I like the Mando timeline, but the fact that Skeleton Crew is happening in that Mando plus whatever, and Favreau already alluded to some of those characters being in Mandalorian season 4. I'm interested in seeing something in live action before the Phantom Menace. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm leaning Acolyte for that reason, even though I don't really know. We don't know much about either series. It does feel like Skeleton Crew is going to be more of a Spielberg, Amblin sort of Goonies type thing, which I love. That's a comfort blanket sort of thing, feeling. I love those types of stories. Coming of age, adventure stuff.
Right,
but Acolyte might be very dark, but it is obviously going to be involved heavily in the Force and the dark side, and I think we need some more stories of that and the lore of the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm leaning that way, but I can be swayed either way based on more information we get.
Yeah, I think it's Acolyte for me, not only just because of the timeline, but because, I don't know, like Leslie Headland having working on Rush and Dahl and how that has to do with like time travel and parallel universes and things. I feel like it almost could be like, what if Star Wars wanted to go the Doctor Strange route,
Mm-hmm.
And they could tell like of the things that the Sith are getting involved in, and the powers that they seek after, because they might not be able to obtain it, but if they just had access to that, and I'm not saying it'd be in the show, but like the world between worlds, if they could just get and there could be a show that's sort of like showing us some of the crazy stuff that the Force is capable
Funny
of.
you mention that.
Yeah.
We will talk about that later in the show.
Will we? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
James, wait, how about this? I did some investigative reporting. AKA, I just Googled this. Shinfield Studios is a mere 90 minutes from the XL Center in London. I think we're going to get a large, and I think this show's still going to be filming during Celebration, or at least maybe wrapping soon around that time. I think we're going to get a big talent presence of this
Yes,
show
100%.
at Celebration. I don't know if it'll get its own panel, but it might just because of the location, and that's another thing to consider.
Well, Ahsoka
I think you have to take
was
into
very
what's
close to.
Ahsoka and Mando will be the two things that are currently people are talking about. I think Mando will be just finishing up, right?
I was saying Ahsoka was being filmed also very near to where Anaheim was at the time. They said it was like 40 minutes away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So similar
Yeah.
type of thing that where you might get like, oh, I'm not there today, but I made this video, or something like that maybe.
True.
But then she showed up the next day.
Yeah.
I think they did the
Yeah.
hey, I'm not here today, so they saved her for Saturday, honestly.
Yeah. Yep.
Speaking of Ahsoka.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's go ahead and move on to the next story. Acolyte has started shooting now, and look for it maybe in the first half of 2024. There's no official announcement of when we're getting it. Speaking of Ahsoka, yes, Ashley Eckstein recently was doing some interviews, technically for Tales of the Jedi. She was talking with Looper, but she was asked specifically about how she had the opportunity, or she was talking about how she had the opportunity to not only meet Rosario Dawson for the first time, but it was on the set of Ahsoka, and she got to go and see. She explained how it was a kind of a lifelong dream to see it all realized, and she got to have these conversations, and she couldn't stop talking because she was so excited to share Ahsoka with Rosario Dawson. And she also had some odd, in my opinion, kind of odd comments about how she's not in the show. She didn't make a cameo, but I don't know. What were your thoughts on Ashley Eckstein talking about visiting the Ahsoka set?
The cameo comments were kind of funny because she just says it, and then she also reiterates later. She's like, I just want to make it clear, like, I'm not in the show. I didn't spoil anything. Like,
yeah.
People are so nervous around Disney NDAs. I love that Ashley got to meet Rosario Dawson. I feel like from the very beginning of this announcement with Rosario, there was kind of this fan tension of like pitting them against each other, of like, oh, well, Ashley should have gotten the part. Ashley's the real Ahsoka. And then people that like the Rosario Ahsoka being like, well, they made the right choice. Ashley can't handle it, that kind of thing. Just that's how the internet operates, is that people automatically say like which one is better. And I think in this scenario, like, it's not needed. It's not needed to have these women be pitted against each other and be competitive in a space that like there's room for both of them. Clearly, Ashley's still doing Ahsoka with Tales of the Jedi, and Rosario Dawson is doing the live action Ahsoka.
Yeah, she did not lose her job.
Right. And overall, but outside of just doing the voice of Ahsoka, Ashley has just been such a great ambassador for Star Wars and Ahsoka and positivity in general. She's changed the game when it came to fandom fashion and women's fashion in this space, because when she kicked it off, I think in 2010, there was nothing for women or anybody like me in the space that wanted, I don't know, cuter clothes than what was out there, which was very kind of Star Wars logo on a tee, and that was it. She's taken it to a whole new place. She brought in the whole Disney bounding side of things, where her clothes look like the characters and you can kind of dress as the character without wearing a specific costume or logo. But yeah, she's just been such a nice person. Like, you just root for her and you want for her to succeed. So reading this story where she finally got to go on the set and see the next phase of the character that she brought to life is just really heartwarming and a great moment in Star Wars fandom, which I'm sure we're going to see a video of it You know they had cameras rolling when this happened. If not photograph, then definitely video. Or if not video, definitely photos. I think we're going to see that in probably the behind the scenes gallery type show about Ahsoka, because you know they're doing a Dave Filoni piece about Ahsoka. You know that's happening, and like the history of Ahsoka. Because this is a really big moment for him and for everybody that's involved with this character. And I just really liked how Ashley got to share her experiences with the character with someone that's now kind of taking that character to the next phase. And then Rosario sharing her experiences, because they're very different, but yet they're bonded through this one character, even though they're playing it differently. So yeah, it was just a really good, feel-good story, and I wish nothing but success for both of them. And I think that it's just an example of characters can be recast and still loved. It doesn't have to be one or the other, whether it's Ahsoka, Han Solo,
Doctor
whoever.
Who.
Sure. It doesn't matter who it is. Everybody has their own take and their own perspective, and it doesn't make it wrong, because everybody's on the same side. Everybody wants to see Star Wars succeed.
Mm-hmm. John, was there any comments or anything that stuck out to you in that interview, or do you echo what Lacey's saying?
I do like that Ashley reiterating that her main background is in live action, and she is available to act in live action if they need her to.
I hope they give her a different character, honestly.
She
Andy Serkis?
she mentions maybe a cameo in season 2. Though I'll say this, while I would love to see her be able to do that, whenever that happens, it throws me out of whatever I'm watching. Whether it's something stupid like Starsky and Hutch and they get the original Starsky and Hutch in, or like 21 Jump Street and Johnny Depp shows up, or
it was
even
both
like
of them.
I forget the other guy's name.
I mean,
like
sure,
Dom
but yeah,
DeLuise's kid.
when the guys show
something
up.
DeLuise. The fact that I knew that blows my mind. But the Hulk, like you have Lou Ferrigno playing a security guard. Like I always spot that stuff. But having said that, I would be happy to see her do that. But yeah, to reiterate a little bit what Lacey was saying about who Ashley is, I've never met her personally, but for everyone who has, whether it's listeners of the podcast or friends of mine
She's so kind.
or whatever, they say that she is very down to earth, very humble, very accessible, very sweet.
I'll never forget, she met me in 2010 when she first had her booth at New York Comic Con, and I bought a trick-or-treat bag from her, and it was like cute, it had little characters on it. She saw me again in 2013 or 2014 when I started 2013 when I started working for Reed Pop. She walked right up to me and said, "Lacey, it's so good to see you." After not seeing me for 3 years.
Yeah. And I feel like Ashley is sort of how I view like Jonas in terms of being that ambassador for fans. Because she's a fan of it just as much as we are, and I feel like Jonas is like that too. So I feel like those two people really stand out to me as like big time like ambassadors who are involved, but are also really accessible to fans, and you feel like they're not like behind some big fortress hiding away from the fans. And I'm happy hearing that this is the first time she met her, which is very cool on the set. So you have Rosario Dawson in the pocket, in the makeup as Ahsoka, running between takes to go talk to Ashley, getting advice from her, but also
Dave's there.
her giving Rosario giving her experience to Ashley, and them both sort of bonding over the character. And I like just hearing this story in general because it squashes any sort of potential for made up animosity that could be stirred up, like literally made up by people saying like, I heard, those guys who just stand in front of dartboards on YouTube and say like, I'm hearing Ashley Eckstein wants Rosario fired. It's like, well, Ashley Eckstein was on the set hugging and embracing Rosario Dawson, and I love when that stuff happens, because then you can say, nope, that's not the case. Go look for something else to make up. And just her embracing this, we had talked about the fact that, we heard she didn't get an opportunity to audition for it. And yeah, that's a bummer. But I always think things happen for a reason, and I think, James, you put it well. She didn't lose her job. We still have Tales of the Jedi just came out. I'm sure that's not the last we've seen of Ahsoka in live action. So I think this whole thing is just a win. I think it's good. Whether Ahsoka's great or not, at least you know that you had the original person there standing on the sidelines rooting for Rosario to do well. And that had to have taken some pressure off of Rosario. Because granted, she shows up in The Mandalorian, does a spot, gets the fan approval there, which has to be step one of, okay, they embrace me as this, they believe me as this, I'm good. But when you have to lead your own series as the character that everyone loves so much, having that person there on the sidelines has to make it easier for you. And it made me think of, Lacey, you touched on it, but it made me think of when Alden was in the chair and Harrison Ford came up from behind him and he was like, oh, you know what? And he's like, I think he did a smart job. He did a great job. He did his own thing with it. And getting that stamp of approval from the OG has to relieve all sense of stress from you. And again, it also puts up the defense against people who are like, you're not Han Solo.
George Lucas
you're not
with
Ahsoka.
TFA. He was at the premiere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that stuff always goes a long way. And her doing that shows how big of a person she is. Because she could have been a bitter person about this whole thing. But she wasn't. And that shows the strength of her character. So this whole story is just awesome. I love hearing it.
Yeah, I mean, like in those examples, like those are really good examples, very similar. The only difference being that those were sort of passing of the torches. And this, again, to reiterate, it's not really like a passing of the torch. It echoes from what Ashley said when she first saw the casting of Rosario Dawson. She got on our Instagram and said, now there are 2 Ahsokas.
Well, also, don't forget Harrison Ford did play Han Solo after Solo.
That I guess that's fair. Yeah. But that still was sort of passing of the torch. Come on. Right? No.
Yeah.
All right.
Passing the dice.
Yeah, passing of the dice. Yeah, I don't really know what more I could say about that. You guys hit all the points exactly right. I mean, it's a great story all around, and I wish her the best in Star Wars, and I wish Rosario Dawson the best in Star Wars. It's going to continue to keep coming. Last thing we got here for Resistance support is that the Saturn Awards were held recently, and Star Wars kind of swept, right? It ended up taking 5 wins. And I guess I'll just go ahead and say them. Obi-Wan Kenobi was 3 of those wins, including Best Limited Event Streaming Series. And The Bad Batch was also part of that too, winning Best Animated Television Series. Specifically, Ming-Na Wen got Best Actress for her role as Fennec Shand in the Book of Boba Fett. And other 2 notable wins were Moses Ingram for Best Supporting Actress and Hayden Christensen for Best Guest Starring Performance. So lots of wins there amongst other television shows. If you go look at the Saturn Awards, it's not it's pretty wide. It's very similar to other award shows that are, the full spectrum of everything. So Obi-Wan really did clean up here. John, do you have any thoughts on the Saturn Awards in general? These particular wins? Anything that stuck out to you?
I mean, I like seeing anybody win for Star Wars. I always think that's good because Star Wars doesn't always get the recognition it deserves because of the genre it's in. And I think that's sometimes why fans lean on something like Andor, like, oh, we could be prestige Star Wars so we could win awards now, and I get that. But Saturn Awards are good for this sort of thing. But I think the biggest thing, obviously, is Hayden Christensen because he won 2 Razzie Awards for the prequels, which is, I hate that stuff.
It's so rude. It's so rude.
The only thing good that ever happened at the Razzies was, I believe, Pauly Shore showed up to accept his award and said something like, "I'm just happy to have been nominated." So
I there's been some pretty good Razzies. There was what's her name?
No, I know, but you get my, I don't want to derail it completely.
Showed up and accepted
for
the
Catwoman.
award. Yeah. And also I think what was it? Who's the? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna blank on her name. But she got nominated for Best Actress and a Razzie Award in the same year for 2 separate movies.
I couldn't tell you.
No, I know who it is. Give me a second and I'll pop in with it.
But I'm looking at Hayden Christensen and him winning this, I think, is a big deal because of that. He didn't win any prestige awards aside from, I think he won Best Villain for Revenge of the Sith at the MTV Awards. But Saturn awards are more legitimate than that, in my opinion. And who he won up against, he beat LeVar Burton. He beat Rosario Dawson from The Mandalorian. He beat Robert Englund in Stranger Things, the guy who's known as Freddy Krueger. He beat Jonathan Majors, Tony Dalton, Jensen Ackles. And seeing his speech, and he's such a humble dude. And again, just like Ashley Eckstein, just one of those, you could just tell. I've never met him, but you could just tell he's a good guy in all of his interviews. And I even saw an old interview recently where he was on the red carpet for Jumper. And it was, it's 3 years after Revenge of the Sith. And they said, would you ever come back to play Anakin again? And this is 2008. And he said, maybe the voice. I would do the voice. And this is when the Clone Wars was coming out. And he's like, they didn't ask me. They never asked me to do it.
Oh,
he said,
man.
I would have done it. They never asked me to do it. Now, Matt Lanter got a job out of it. I think things happen for a reason, so that's fine. But he said, I would do my voice. I would have done my voice. And now we got to see him back as not only Anakin, but Darth Vader, which they crushed. And he gets to win this award. This has to be a big closure moment for him. I think more so than, or maybe equal to, his just return in general. Because he got a lot of crap for the prequels. And he's not a bad actor.
It wasn't his fault. It was clunky writing.
The dialogue was clunky, and he's not a bad actor. I've seen him in great performances like Shattered Glass and Life is a House. I recommend watching those. And seeing him get this recognition, you could tell it meant a lot to him. I'm
Little
glad
Italy,
he didn't get too...
he's great.
Huh?
He's good in Little Italy.
Yeah. Well, I was being serious.
I'm being serious too. He is good in that movie.
I'm glad he didn't get overly emotional about it, but I also liked he thanked a lot of people, from publicists to Deborah Chow, Ewan McGregor, and of course George Lucas at the end, which I think was a really nice thing to do, because George Lucas is the one who got him his break, and the casting director from the prequels at the time, because there were a lot of people up for that role. Leo DiCaprio, a lot of crazy names were up for that, and he's the one who landed it because of his personality. And it shows that if you're, it's jaded the way Hollywood operates. I think George Lucas is an outlier of that because he was never a Hollywood guy. But he's the story of, you can be a good person and still make it. And I think that's inspiring. And I hope he does show up in stuff like Ahsoka. I heard that's a rumor. But I hope he's not done yet. And I'm glad he's back. And it just, again, another
George
really
Lucas for a second.
I mean, George Lucas will always
Ahsoka.
be here, right? But I just think it's a great story, and I'm glad he's back in the Star Wars circles, so to speak, and it's a nice ribbon on the story of his return.
Yeah, absolutely. Lacey, I want to get to you really quick, but I do want to point out, because I said I would say who it was.
Was it Sandra Bullock?
Sandra Bullock, yeah. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress in 2009 for The Blind Side.
Yeah.
And she also was nominated for
Miss
a
Congeniality
Razzie.
too.
Nope, for All About Steve.
All About Steve.
Oh, okay.
Anyway. Lacey, thoughts on...
I was going to say Sandra Bullock before, but I didn't want to be wrong, so I didn't say anything.
Yeah, no. It was like, it's one of the, I obviously had trouble with the name, and she's super famous, so it's like, I do that sometimes. I just luck out on random.
I love Sandra Bullock.
Thoughts on Saturn Awards, the winners, and I guess Hayden Christensen's speech specifically?
Yeah, I love seeing Star Wars win awards. I think it's always been, whether it's a TV show or a movie or a series, it's animated or live action, they're always pushing boundaries of what can be done. Technology, story, sets, costumes, makeup, music, and I feel like it definitely gets pushed aside a lot when it comes to awards, whether it be Oscars or especially the special effects thing always kind of irks me when I see, Oscars special effects, and then we're looking at the Falcon flying through the Kessel Run, avoiding meteors and doing all these crazy things, and they gave it to this person made a tree, and you're like, what? But I understand that everybody does crazy hard work in all different movies, so I get it, but it's just I'm a little biased here. That being said, I was pumped for all the people that won. Ming-Na is just another person that is so delightful. So to see her just get her moment and be up on stage and so excited to win. And then to see Hayden win is, like John said, it's the perfect kind of bookend on his redemption tour that he's been on since, Celebration to now, basically, with all these interviews and screenings and press lines and whatnot. And it's funny because he goes to Disneyland a lot with his kids, which is wonderful. And he's always willing to stop and take pictures with fans and like talk to fans
cool.
and stuff. So he loves it. And I think similar to what John was saying, he just got such a bad rap for the prequels. And look, there are moments in the prequels I don't like with his character in particular, with Anakin, but that doesn't mean that I don't like him. And I think that oftentimes fans were unable to make that separation between character and real person. And because of what happened early in his career, he was kind of just like not given any opportunities anymore. So I hope that this kind of opens the door for him a little bit, that he's back on that good side of like, hey, he's a great actor. Give him a shot.
Like Brendan Fraser.
Right, exactly. Who's now making his rounds and getting awards and stuff.
And they're saying they may even like dabble with another mummy. Like he's back.
I really hope everything that has ever happened to actors like Hayden or Brendan Fraser, they get that karma comes back around, that people get their moment. And this was a great example of someone that's just an overly good person that had the best intentions for the roles that he was in. And like hearing him talk about how when he found out he got the job, like lightsaber battle with his roommate, like being like, I'm going to be Anakin Skywalker. This is crazy. And then to know what comes after that is just heartbreaking. So to see him come full circle here and get his moment of recognition, and then just hearing how, like John said, he just runs through all these people's names. Like most people just say like their agent and a director. He went through the whole gamut of the type of people that he worked with. And I did like how he did like
publicity people and stuff too.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think it's because he was looking at the table of the people in front of him, so he was saying the names. But I do appreciate that he did take time to thank the casting director that initially gave him the shot to play Anakin, and George Lucas at the end was great, because I'm sure eventually George heard about it. But I wish him all the success, and I hope to see him again. I hope he is in Ahsoka, that he gets to play Anakin again. I think he'll play it as long as they let him.
Yeah, and there was I don't know if this was deliberate or not, but there was a line in his speech where he says, "This is because of Obi-Wan," and I'm like, is that a nod to Revenge of the Sith?
Oh,
It
yeah.
was like right on the nose.
Yeah,
He held up the thing, and he's like, he's not here, but I have to thank my friend Ewan McGregor. This award is because of Obi-Wan, and I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, again, man, you guys like really nailed it. I don't know what more I could say about the awards and who got what. And
But Moses Ingram, won too, and she was someone who got a lot of crap too. She has the modern version of Hayden Christensen, and she got to win an award.
People
That's
just like to be angry,
absolutely
but I'm
true.
glad she got appreciated for her time and effort she put into the role.
Yeah, because she may not be done. They left her open-ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to see who she was up against too. Best actress. No, that's in a film. Best actress in a film. Best actress in a film.
Okay,
These are all
well,
films. Well,
do we want to move on?
Yeah, that's it for Resistance Report then, and I'll let Lacey take it away.
Awesome. All right, guys, it's time for the Patreon pod race. So there are lots of ways you can support us. You can like this like this video, comment, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at TRB Podcasts, or on Instagram at The Resistance Broadcast, or follow us on audio platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Please take the time, if you do go to one of those platforms, and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing, what you liked about the show. It helps us figure out what you guys like, and also helps new people find us, which is super helpful. But if you want more than that, and you want to really support the show and be a part of the Resistance, you can head over to patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. Starting at just $5 a month, you get access to the page, and you get to engage with not only us, but other people in the community that like Star Wars just like you do. So we have extra content, we have a Discord server as you go up in the tiers, merchandise, live chats, live streams, watch-along parties, and much, much more. So before we get into this segment, which is where we ask someone from our generals or spice runners a question and they give us their answer, I'm going to thank those people, and hopefully I can make it through it. I'm getting over a cold, and I'm coughing a little bit, so I apologize. All right. Thank you to our generals, Carmelo, John Risi, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Rumore, Matt Heath, Chris White, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Sneaky Zebra, Paul Sullivan, and Val Trichkov. Thank you guys so much. And to our Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelner, Ryan Wara, Dave Hornack, Thomas Hennessy, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and Michael Fry. Thank you guys so much.
Crazy.
All right. So this week we have the awesome John Risi, and his question was, what is your number one dream Star Wars collectible or memorabilia item to own one day, and why? So John, take it away.
Hello, TRB. This is General Beard. I think my most wanted collectible would be Ahsoka Tano's lightsabers from Star Wars Rebels. They are the closest hilts, I think, to samurai swords in their design, and they're really just my favorite. And Ahsoka's one of my top 3 characters. So I'll keep it short and sweet. I think that is what I would want. And if they could be signed by Ashley Eckstein, that would be a big bonus. Okay, General Beard out. Everyone have a good night.
Awesome job, John. Love your art behind you, the bottleneck gallery stuff. I think you got that, and I also got it too. So we're buddies there. I liked all the different art behind you with the yak bar, and you just have an amazing collection. But John, what'd you think?
Awesome. And it's funny because we were just talking about Ahsoka, but I had to ask. I like to think I'm a good sight in terms of pointing things out, but that picture of you in the TRB shirt, it looks like Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sam Witwer. I can't be positive.
It's definitely Sam Witwer on the right.
He always wears red t-shirts. Yeah, but that also looks like Freddie, and that would make sense having the two of them there because they're buddies. But let us know. But that's awesome. I don't know if I remember you doing that.
Please share the pic with us. We want to see it.
Yeah, I want to see that. Like, not way in the corner. Like, where's Waldo? I wanna see that photo. But no, I know you love your collectibles, so I wanted to pitch this question to you because I don't know that I knew your like dream, like white whale item. But the specifically the Rebels lightsabers is cool for the reason you listed. I really like that a lot, and having it autographed by Ashley Eckstein would be pretty awesome. So
what a good question
dude,
for the conversations we were just having.
Yeah, it works. Sometimes it works out. And no, I think you did a great job answering it. I back up what Lacey's saying. I love how you have everything set up. It looks like you're now settled into the new home and your little nerd nook, which is great. Which means your bride to be embraces your nerdity, which is also awesome. But more importantly than not, you've been supporting us for a very long time, and I just want to say thank you. You are our General Beard. So the first, so thanks a lot, man. Miss you, and can't wait till we get a chance to hang out again in person, buddy.
James?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think this is that's a really great prop. Like every time I go and look at the lightsabers, like whether it's at Galaxy's Edge or like the Outpost or something like that, I always am sure to notice Ahsoka's because it's got the two, they're right next to each other, and they're like the different sizes. They kind of come together.
Doesn't Jeremy have those? I think he uses
does.
those in a pod.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of things I saw, like I did actually pick this up. I posted a picture of it. I don't know what it was from, and I'd never seen it
D23.
before. Yeah. But
I
What
have
is it,
one.
James?
I was so pumped when you bought one. I was like, I have one right next to me.
I turned the corner and I saw it, and I was like, that is just an awesome Ahsoka. Like, it's the style and the character, like the outfit and everything. Yeah. And it has the lightsabers, and they're both like the different sizes, and just the way she was holding them and everything. I was like, I feel like I need to have
like what's
that.
it called? What
I don't know.
like version? Oh, it's just an Ahsoka figure.
It looks
It's the
sort of
Ahsoka
like the
Special
Forces of
Edition.
Destiny, but it's not.
Disney
Okay.
special edition, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, So when you said that, I immediately was like, oh yeah, I totally relate to that. Like an Ahsoka Tano character or the lightsabers in general. Yeah, great pick. Especially if it was signed, that would be nuts. Thanks, John, for always being there for us and doing the pod race.
All right. Now, speaking of John, we're going to go to the other John.
All right. I don't usually do this, so I'm going to do my best to live up to the reputation of James Arthur Bainey over here. That's an old school reference, man. All right, let's do Will of the Force.
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
All right, we have a few here. We really, it's the month of Thanksgiving, and we want to say thanks, as Lacey did before, but to all of our patrons. Your support is a great gift to us, and it helps us to sort of live out our dreams in a sense. I mean, we all still have jobs and stuff, but we are trying to grow the podcast, and just being able to do what we do and put the time that we put in. We all have families and stuff. Your support allows all that to happen. So we're doing a special Patreon, all Patreon edition of Will of the Force today. You guys ready?
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. First one, talk about patrons we love. We just talked about John Risi and Jeremy. Neel Shah, Spice Runner Neel Shah. Love you, Neel. He pitched this question to us, and he said, will Lucasfilm readjust how they announce projects moving forward, given the number of projects apparently shelved or in limbo? If so, what's your ideal way Lucasfilm could announce projects, like Marvel, or once a project is underway, etc.? So I guess we'll do the will first. Lacey, will they readjust how they announce things going forward? And as the caveat, because he's Neel, and even though he broke the rules, we got to do it. How do you think they would do it?
I think they will readjust how they announce projects. I think they already have. They've started that pivot with the rumor that they've been like, stop announcing things. I think my ideal way is for them to do it all at once with one big calendar, and that specific touch points throughout the year, like Celebration, San Diego, New York Comic-Con, so that every year I'm going to get announcements at these time periods, and they're not just sporadically thrown out, leaked through someone, sketchy gifts being sent out with a winky face being like, oh, I just heard something, but I can't talk about it yet. Just put all the info out when you have it.
All right. I like that. James, how about you? Are they going to make a change? And if so, how do you envision them doing it?
Really same answer. I do expect them to make a change on how they're doing it. The problem is I just think, like, if you say do it like this, then they'll say, well, we did do it like that. And they'll give you like one example of when they did do it like that. But I think Lacey's on the right track here. I think you just need to say, this year's celebration is going to be that one where we announce all the stuff, I don't know how many times they'd be able to do that every year, especially if they're trying to keep a lid on how often they're announcing things. So it's like maybe once a year you get that big slate, the revamp. Or maybe they could just make a day out of it. Maybe it is like on May the 4th or something, they just, they have like a specific day that's like, this is the day where every year we remind you of our calendar and possibly give you, this is the day you're going to get announcements if there ever are going to be announcements or something. But I understand how that could cannibalize other shows and other things. So it is tricky. But I mean, I think in an ideal world, that's what I would like to see. John?
Yeah, I think they obviously will, because of this reported mandate, if that is true, sort of like, don't put the cart before the horse.
Big, if true.
Yeah.
If true.
I would love a situation where they were able to secretly film something and then just smack us in the face with a teaser and be like, holy cow, they were doing this the whole time. That would be kind of cool. Like Blink-182 just did. Like, apparently they recorded a whole album with Tom back and they put out a new song. Nobody knew it was happening. I know a movie's harder than that, but that's the dream. But for the question, I think they will obviously make a change there. So thanks, Neel. Next up, we have Admiral Aslam. What is up, Hass?
What up?
And he asked, will we ever see a Sith threat in any proposed movies set after The Rise of Skywalker? James, you're going to kick this one off.
Tough, because they're killing a legacy, but I gotta think no. I think at best you'll probably get something where they try to play with that world where they're like, well, Kylo Ren and Snoke are not actually Sith, and they played in that world for a little while, and that technically is the truth. But I still think to this day, you go ask like the average Star Wars fan, like, hey, is Kylo Ren a Sith? They're like, yeah. It's
a lot of people think he is, yeah.
So they'll probably just play in that realm. I think that canon-wise, the real story, though, is they have to, at this point, be like, nope, Sith are dead.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think people had an issue with Vader not ending the Sith as the chosen one because Palpatine came back and then Rey did it. But I think it's time to put an end to the Sith for good. Otherwise, what are we doing? We beat Palpatine twice. I'm all the Jedi, I'm all the Sith, and when does it end? So I know people are going to throw out the no one's ever really gone thing. I don't care. I don't want the Sith to come back because I think it would double downplay now what we've seen. Lacey, I don't know. What do you think?
Did you guys, before you say that, did you see the I am all the Jedi and I am all the Sith and I am just a tourist?
I'm a tourist. I did see that in that casting, yeah, with the blue tint.
Yeah. I don't think we'll ever see a Sith threat in any movies after Rise of Skywalker. I think that died with Palpatine. I think we're going to definitely see threats of dark side users, but I think they're going to kind of put in some type of preference of like, hey, remember the Sith? Like, I stemmed from that or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where they go through like a reference to what used to be and what is now. Because they know that audiences are going to make that connection. So they'll say it out loud, but I don't think we're going to see specifically Sith.
Yep.
All right. 3 for 3 there. Next one here, we have Major Colton Bliss. Hey, Colton.
Such a good name.
Yes. Will the World Between Worlds, there it is, James, ever make a live action appearance? Will it happen in Ahsoka if it does? And if it does, will it forever change the future of Star Wars as we know it? Lacey, you go first.
Don't start with me. Start with James.
Well, can I start then?
Sure.
I don't think so. I even think Filoni said as much, that he didn't want to open the can of worms too wide. And I believe they sort of like Cave of Wonders, like collapsed all that. And I think it would really make Star Wars messy if they mess with it too much. So I think this is me saying I hope they don't. And because of that, I'm saying they will not. James, what do you think?
I'd like to point out that in a way, the World Between Worlds has already made a live action appearance by showing up in Andor.
Oh, with this palette
in the antiquities?
things?
Yeah. So parts and pieces of the World Between World,
probably not how he's asking.
I understand that's not what he's saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying that technically the first live action point to when you see the hands and everything, it will that was how that was related. But I think the answer has to be no, for that reason. I feel like I don't know. I can't imagine Star Wars ever getting to the point that Marvel is at where they are able to say, something as wide as like, we're going to wipe all of that story and somehow figure out a way to reboot all of this or retell different universe. Yeah, I was saying
they already have with Loki.
Okay. What I'm saying is I don't think Star Wars is ever going to get to a point that Marvel has. Even other franchises like Star Trek, for instance, it's almost believable in that lore that's possible. And it's weird because Star Wars technically has that ability, and yet I think people would just say that's not Star Wars if it was too big. If they went real wide with it and did live action and tried to say like this is a parallel Star Wars universe, people would be like, this is not Star Wars to me. I don't know, but then again, they've done some really crazy things with the Force, and like what we were doing, where like Rey and Obi-Wan were, or I'm sorry, Rey and Kylo Ren were in 2 different locations and they were still fighting. It's like they've done some really weird stuff. So I don't know. It's always possible, but I think the answer is no, that they're not going to touch that.
All right. Lacey, what do you think?
So there are 3 questions here.
Yeah.
Will the World Between Worlds ever make a live action appearance? I would say no, because it gets too kind of dicey.
Mm-hmm.
So it will not happen in Ahsoka. And will it forever change Star Wars? Yes, absolutely it would. You're seeing it with Marvel right now, the way that they handled the whole Loki thing in the multiverse, and how you saw at the end of Loki all the timelines started to split and splinter and go crazy, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Iron Man's coming back now or something?
Yeah,
like
and
that?
the rumor is Tony Stark's now coming back, and like, you know, there could be one man or one actor that's playing Mr. Fantastic on one timeline and someone's playing the character on this timeline, and you have Peggy Carter being, you know, basically Captain America, but it's not Captain America over here, and then it's a lot, and it can get confusing, which is understandable, and I just don't think Lucasfilm is looking to open that door, that world between worlds, because despite wanting to be creative and wanting to try new things and try to dive into those new ideas that Dave Filoni has introduced, I think there also is an element that they have to honor George's legacy. And I don't think that they would try to touch anything or any story or element that George came up with. They think that
I agree with that.
would be kind of sacrilegious or terrible to George, and I think that they've changed enough as it is from what he wanted with the sequel trilogy. So I just think that they're not going to touch stuff that's been already decided.
I alluded to it earlier, but like, I don't know, the closest you might get is out of the Acolyte. They might do some weird stuff there. Like I said, Leslie Headland did Russian Doll. She's got the stuff where they're clearly in parallel universes and other things like that. And there's always the possibility that somebody said, this is a show that we were kind of looking at. We think you're great at doing this. Can you bring this type of story and these type of things to Star Wars in a live action setting, and we'll give you like the Sith and all the Force and all that? And she's like, yeah, sure, I can do that. You know, so that might be the closest we get in live action to something that is on the same level as the World Between Worlds.
Sure.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if they dabble at all. But the Acolyte is a good point with like something about the comics with like Lord Momin and craziness. All right, last one here, a little quick fun one. Mike Rumore, one of our generals. Hey, buddy. Will you start decorating for Christmas immediately after Halloween? Now it is after Halloween, so have you started? And if not, is it coming soon? Lacey, you're a big decorator, so I'll start with you.
I already have my mug that says, "This is my Christmas movie mug." So I would say yes. I already have stuff out and stuff that I've purchased, and Christmas is my favorite, so I don't think I'm going to be able to wait till Thanksgiving.
James, I don't know about you. We have not, and it's probably going to be a post-Thanksgiving situation for the Hoey house. So how about Team Baney?
I mean, that's always... I think there's the exact days, like everybody knows. It's November 1st, you start doing this stuff, and then Black Friday, you start doing that stuff. Like, it's just the day after the holiday marks
personal preference.
When the next setup for the... Yeah, I just think if you start after Halloween for Christmas, you're excluding Thanksgiving. So
I'm not having Thanksgiving in my house, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. All right. Thank you all for those questions. Keep them coming. If you're a patron, we post that usually every week if we're doing Will of the Force. Lacey gets that up there so we can hear from you. And we love the topics because it always adds to fun answers and fun discussions. So thank you. That does take us to the end of the show, though. So we thank you for joining us for the past hour here. We hope we made your Monday brighter and kicked off your week in a good way, talking Star Wars and a lot of positive stories, which is always a good thing to do when it comes to talking Star Wars. But make sure you do subscribe to the show, preferred audio platform or the channel, of course. Star Wars Newsnet. Go there for all of your Star Wars news. They have reviews, editorials, information, and more. I write and edit over there as well. And you can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey. And my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. Tomorrow we're putting out our episode on Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Never seen
James,
it.
where can people hit you up?
Just kidding. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, both at Myra Trunks.
All right. Lacey Gillerin, the queen of Christmas decorating.
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
All right. Thank you all so much. Remember, Wednesday, 9 p.m. live. We're talking Andor episode 10. Am I missing anything else, or are we good to go?
We're good to go.
I think we're good to go. All right. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your weeks, and we'll see you next time with another episode right here on the Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.